We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Leah Wietholter, and I'm the owner of Workman Forensics in Tulsa. And I'm also the creator of the Investigation Game, which is a CPE training game that teaches students or professionals how to work through an actual fraud investigation. And this is based on a real case that I worked several years ago. And it was a super interesting case, and it makes for a really great game. So I'm excited to share that with you today. There's a key concepts presentation. Like I said, we talk about as CPAs, CFEs, auditors, we're required to be objective. And so that's really great in theory, but how do we put that into practice? And the way that we do that, in my opinion, and the way that we work cases at Workman Forensics is that we are constantly thinking about best evidence and how we put best evidence into the investigative process. Our investigative process that we talk about in this game is not theoretical. It is literal. It is practical application of the investigative process in a fraud investigation. Drama is what's interesting, but if we can remain objective by using this process, we create the most value for our clients in the end. So our investigative process is we learn about the case and then we perform research. Then, of course, we do data analysis. What's exciting about this game is that you actually get to apply that to a case. Then, once we have our information, we're going to try to interview the subject. Then we talk about connecting the dots in case analysis, and then also taking all of the information we've gathered from all these different sources and connecting all the dots to create our findings and report. And so first, research, we just talk about all different kinds of places to perform research and what's most reliable, what are black holes like social media. Then when we're talking about data analysis, we're once again talking about best evidence, and we really emphasize going to third parties for source documentation. We talk about how in the real world, company records and bank statements weren't reconciled. And that's very true in fraud investigations. A lot of times the person who's controlling everything isn't reconciling because that's helping them perpetuate their fraud. The role that confirmations play in a fraud investigation, getting those invoices directly from vendors, once again, what's our best evidence of what we have. I also explain data analysis as this, a Venn diagram. And what we're looking at is what does our subject control? And then we want to compare that to what our subject doesn't control. In most of the cases, whatever's verified and matching, we're good to go. What doesn't match is where we need to keep looking. And often that's where our loss is contained. What is the subject accused of doing? And then what data or facts will allow us to verify whether the allegations are correct or not correct. We also talk about the role that interviews play, and subjects are willing to talk to us as part of an interview and when that's appropriate. So we kind of talk a little bit, not about interview methods because it's a pretty quick presentation. And we talk about case analysis as kind of like an escape room that we connect the dots, once again, using best evidence. And then just remembering at the end, we look at what can we actually prove, what does or doesn't match our best evidence, and then who benefited. Then we talk about our findings and report and some of the best ways to quantify and communicate. And we reinforce this in the game with our scorecard. This is the virtual platform. We're using something called Thinkific, and we've been really happy with how this works. We have taken the exact same gameplay and just converted it into a virtual environment. The game-like features include things like anywhere they see this a number somewhere, they're going to end up, and the cards walk you through how to do this. Phase 2 tells you, take those numbers that I just pointed out, and you're going to use the research base. So this entire platform, we've organized it where it's essentially your hub for doing all your investigation, for learning about the story, and then it branches off to other things, kind of like an investigation does. So we're going to go to the research base. I'll show you how that works. So you take the values that we were just looking at, and on that first phase card, the value for our subject bill is 9. So we go to this research base and we enter the number 9, and then you look at, which of these types of research would you want to perform about Bill. For the sake of example, we're going to look at his HR file, and then we research it. And when we do that, we pull up a virtual card that shows his HR file, which then gives us more numbers to go and investigate. So we have all of these phase cards, once again, that you just flip over and it'll tell you what to do. And it tells you, you know, if you want to interview Bill, choose lesson hotel. If you want to begin your data analysis, choose lesson kilo. And so you come down here and choose kilo. The online information hub is also linked in here, but I've opened it in another tab. And since this is mine, I've already unlocked everything. If I had the password for Charlie, I would enter the password here and unlock it. And then I end up with our various links. So I would be digitizing bank statements, unlocking that. And here's one of our timers that I was just talking about. And then there's information that's revealed once the timer is complete. One of my favorite features, if you work the path correctly, you know, you followed the investigative process, and you actually end up with an interview of Bill Word. No, this is not the real guy. We recreated all of this, but I just think that's a really fun feature at the end. And if you don't follow the investigative process and things that we've talked about in the presentation, it is impossible to score high on this game. It's we've definitely made the scoring reinforce the learning objectives. We do have a scorecard where we talk about, this is where we get into that, you know, summarizing our findings and reporting. In this particular case, there were a lot of assets to recover. You get more points if you can identify all of the recoverable assets. And then we also give bonuses for what the decisions made. You know, what process did you follow to determine your results? At the conclusion of the 65 minutes, then we go through all of the correct schemes and losses, and we talk about which items should have been included, why not certain items. We identify all of the assets, and then we talk about all the decisions. As we go through those things, then I also tell the case stories as well and where he is now. But that is the investigation game,